You know, there aren't many things that are common among all parents or almost all parents across all cultures through all generations, from the history of time to probably the end of time. But there are two things that are common. One is we all want a better situation for our kids and for our future generations than what we had. And number two is this feeling of parenting guilt. And in many ways, these two things go hand in hand because a lot of our parenting guilt comes from our own family history, our own generational history, our own cultural history. And those generational patterns and cycles come out when stress gets high, when pressure gets high, when we have triggers, and when suddenly our parents' words or those who influenced us most come out of our mouth and we don't even realize it. Hi, if we haven't met, my name is Jesse, and I help parents take control of these cycles, take control of these habits through becoming conscious parents, conscious living, becoming aware of these so they can have control of the way they raise their kids. This means that you don't have to be a slave to the way you were raised, the way that your parents were raised, the way that your culture says you should raise your kids, but you can take control and raise your kids to rise above these cycles. And these cycles are the very things that cause a lot of parenting guilt for many parents. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to take you through a simple 3-step process so that you can identify when these patterns and cycles are taking over, so that you can understand them within yourself and you can make a conscious decision to better explain them and help your children go through these and work through these so that we can eliminate these generational cycles forever and create a family culture and legacy that outlives us and change our family tree forever. By the end of this short presentation, you will have the awareness and you will have the tools to begin so that you can handle parenting guilt, because that comes in all sizes and shapes and times. Even when things are going well, that parenting guilt can still rear its ugly head. You'll understand how to handle it when your child has a blow up, a meltdown, how to handle it when they are misbehaving and when you're misbehaving. You'll be able to handle that, identify it, and handle it. And you will understand how to manage this parenting guilt within yourself so that you don't enter this guilt cycle, which I will talk about in the presentation. You will learn the 3 steps to overcome this and to begin right now. And on the next page, you'll find tools to take it one step farther. So let's get into it. Hey there. So this is a parent leadership, and today we're going to look at the cycle breaker in this short presentation. And at the end of this short presentation, well, if you want to stop now, these are the 3 steps: the pattern interrupt, the body, and the intellect. That will lead to the conscious decision. But this is the flow on how you can ultimately be a more conscious parent, a more present parent, and a more effective leader in your home. And that's what we all want, right? We want to create a family culture and a family legacy, a family culture of communication, a family culture of understanding, a family culture of togetherness, a unit, so that your kids aren't drifting further and further apart, so that you're not drifting further and further apart from your kids, so that you can be the parent leader, you can guide them and lead them in a direction towards success, and ultimately lead yourself into a direction of success. So let's get on into where it starts. And it starts here with the triggers, right? We all have triggers, whether it's our kids don't listen, or they don't eat well, or they're super picky, or they're always fighting, or they hit, or whatever trigger happens. We have these triggers, and these triggers are the strongest when we're under stress and pressure and just the stresses and pressures of life, money, time, people, our emotions. And when these things happen, when stress builds, we end up resorting to these patterns that we've learned growing up from teachers, from parents, from neighbors, from the traumas that we've had when we were growing up, how we've learned to interact with people that is deep down into our cellular memory. And it comes out when the stress is the highest. And that leads to blame, shame, guilt. And blame and shame and guilt are three emotions that never ever serve us. And it ends up that we end up passing that on to our kids, because if we feel shame, we think that that's the best way to communicate, or we just communicate that with them without thinking it's the best thing. And then here's the thing with the guilt cycle is that we feel parenting guilt. And this can be from anything from time to providing for them, to a situation, to them having a fight with a friend at school or feeling lonely, whatever. Parenting guilt surfaces. We take it upon us and our shoulders. And then that leads to us feeling blame and shame and guilt. And because of that, we start acting in ways, behaving in ways that causes more guilt, because we feel that and then we express that through losing our temper, through working too much, through whatever, but we behave in ways that will bring more guilt. And that guilt and shame and blame brings more reasons to feel guilty. And that guilty feeling brings more evidence and more things and behaviors. And that brings more guilt. And that brings more behaviors. And the cycle just keeps going until somebody, you decide that's enough. Let's figure a way to get out of this cycle. And that's what this parent leadership, that's what this cycle breaker is all about. There are three main steps to get to a conscious decision, because once we can get to this part, once we can get to a conscious decision, meaning, what does a conscious decision mean? It means that we are fully aware of the decision that we're making. We're in control of it. Our emotions are not in control of it. Our culture is not in control of it. Our family history is not in control of it. We are in control of this decision, and we are deciding that this decision is the healthiest decision for me and my family. So it starts at the trigger. It starts at whatever is raising our pressure, making our pressure rise. And then that triggers us. So whatever we're feeling, those times when you want to snap, or maybe you do snap, but just before that point, I start with a pattern interrupt. And this could be with your child. Once we master this for ourselves, then we can guide our children through that, right? But I do that during their meltdowns too. A little pattern interrupt. See what I just did there? I had a break in the flow, a break in the energy, and it got your attention. Why? Because it was something a little different. I did a little spinny thing. Why did I do that? I don't know. It just came to me just now. I didn't even plan that. But I mean, I did plan the pattern interrupt, but it can be anything. It's something that I do in the moment. Sometimes it could just be a matter of taking 5 silent seconds and breathing through my belly, into my belly. Whatever it is, we want to break that emotional tension. We want to break the negative flow of energy that's coming through, and we want to stop it by doing something that changes the flow. And that's a pattern interrupt. I have this on the next page with tools. I teach about that. I show about that a little more. But the pattern interrupt is so powerful, and it's something that I never hear other parent coaches or counselors or whatever talk about, because I learned it from marketing coach, right? And I've adapted it as a parent, and now I'm sharing it with you. So a pattern interrupt. That's where it starts. Nobody talks about that, but that's where I start. And then once we can do that, then a lot of the times parents will say, why did I do that? Or why do you do that? Why do you always do that? Tell me why. What are you thinking? That's a very common thing to think and say to your kids. Why did you do that? But that's getting to the intellect. We're not there. We are in our bodies. We are in our emotions right now. And when the stress is high, when those triggers and stress hits, we're not in our intellect. We're in our body. So we go from the pattern interrupt and then feel it in my body. And what I do is I identify where it is in my body. I identify where I'm feeling the stress. I identify where I'm feeling the guilt. Sometimes, usually for me, usually it's in my belly. Sometimes it's in my chest. Sometimes it's in my neck. Sometimes it's right here. Sometimes it's in the back of my head. Wherever it is in your body, feel into it. A lot of people will try to brush over it, to turn up the music really loud or whatever, try to avoid it. No, we're steering into this. We want to feel it in our body. You see, I often say, and I say this in the tools in the next page, that those negative, guilty, blame, shame, guilt thoughts that remind you of all of the times you've messed up, I call those raccoons. And when you hear raccoons stirring around in your garbage, making a mess, sometimes it's scary, but you go out under the porch, turn on the light, open up a flashlight or turn on a flashlight. And what happens? Those raccoons, they stop, they look, and then they scurry away. Same thing. We want to lean into these thoughts. It may be scary, but that's where you can get them. That's where we take control. That's where we take leadership, because we're looking to break these cycles and turn it into a win cycle. We're going to talk about that. So the first step, pattern interrupt. Second step, feel it in my body. Identify where it is in my body and breathe into it. And then we can start thinking about the why. We can start thinking about what this means. We can start thinking about solutions. We can start thinking about ways that we can start thinking, because those raccoons are calmed down, because those raccoons are a little better under control. And then that's where we make the conscious decision. That's where we can make a conscious decision. That's where we can get into ourselves and really, maybe if you're religious, ask God, ask the universe, ask source, ask your higher self, whatever, or just consult yourself, your present self, and see what the best order of action to take is. Here's the problem. Here's one of the problems is these things are so strong. These negative emotions are anywhere from 4 to 7 times more powerful than a positive emotion or a positive thought. This goes back to biology, like when we were in the caveman days, we needed to be on alert in case there was a jaguar or in case there was danger. We needed to be on alert. It's a survival mechanism. So that's why inside our biology, negative emotions, negative thoughts are 4 to 7 times more powerful than positive thoughts. So at any point here, these suckers can jump in. You pattern interrupt. I've done this at every stage. You pattern interrupt. Then the thought comes back even stronger. You pattern interrupt successfully. You're making your way over to your body. And then you start thinking, and another thing, you can use this with your partner or whatever. And then you go back here, right? It's like a magnet pulling you back until it just takes repetition. It's repetition, getting in the reps of going through these steps until it becomes more and more natural, until it becomes more and more automatic, until you get more and more control. And then once you can start doing this, that's when the successful ideas lead to wins and winning decisions. And these winning decisions lead to a win feeling. And then winning feeling leads to more winning decisions. And the winning decisions lead to more winning feelings. And you see how we moved from the guilt cycle through this process into a win cycle. And that's what we do. On the next page, you're going to see some information and some training, and also an option to talk to me or to sign up directly for a parent leadership coaching if you want to jump directly to that and get this taken care of a lot faster. But there are some free resources for you to take advantage of over there as well. But in Apparent Leadership, we use frameworks and tools to take control of these using leadership principles and story elements so that you can create your own family story. You can create your own family culture so that you can create your own family legacy, the one that you want, not the one that's chosen for you from your history, from your culture, from generations past. But you can take leadership, take control. And that's what we're going to do on the next page. So I invite you to click the link below, go on the next page, grab the PDF of Healthy Family Communication Patterns to use for yourself and your family. You can start today, schedule a call with me, or jump directly into Apparent Leadership, fill out the onboarding document, and schedule your first session immediately, because now is the time. You don't want to wait until your kids are older and they are too far apart and there's no relationship between them. You don't want to wait until they're teenagers and then they're already gone and your connection is already broken. And then it's a matter of repairing. We can do that too, but you want to get ahead of the game. The sooner, the better. Start, grab a tool, talk to me, join Apparent Leadership, do something, take action today to carve your own path and to create your own family culture. I'll see you on the next page.